Welcome back again, and thank you for joining me once more. So I'll start by saying, pretty much full disclosure, it's been a pretty rough week to work on a game part-time. Many activities happening and things to look after. It becomes quite a challenge to sit down late at night, find another gear, and essentially start working again. It happens from time to time, and it's expected that you'll have ups and downs, but the most important part to take out of it is to not let it get to you. Just pick up where you left off anytime you can and just make progress, even if it's as little as possible. So I guess here we are. Now, if we look at a recap of what I wanted to do last week, or I planned to do throughout the week, I was going to look at combo stun length, combo damage, the HUD, super meter, and I was going to consider basically chainable chains, so chaining indefinitely. Now I'll start off with the HUD. From the inception of the game, I've always had a circular design for the HUD in mind. I always prefer to have a minimal HUD where information is immediately relayed without the player really having to do much reading or interpretation. And to furnish this idea of a circular design, I would have to have circular progress bars. And I kind of feel that Unreal Engine should at least have something like that as a standard by now. I mean, it comes up often enough that I've seen that I think it would be valuable, and it's an often used feature, but that's just an opinion, really. I ventured on a journey to implement my own circular progress bar, and for the most part I succeeded. However, there was still a lot of missing pieces, as I wanted to be able to mask it with an image and a few other features. And some people might probably say, hey, that's pretty easy to do, but I haven't delved into materials enough to make an educated guess of how to do it, or even where to start. And I probably would have eventually figured it out, but when it comes to programming, I do have a strong feeling towards the phrase, don't reinvent the wheel. Chances are somebody else has already done this kind of legwork, so you can just pick it up and make use of that. So I turned towards Fab. I mean, what an amazing resource to have access to. I quickly found exactly what I was looking for, and at a very reasonable price. And I'll leave a link to it in the description, and I most definitely need to give a shout out to the creator of the asset. Not only is the asset super simple to use and implement, I had a question about changes I would like that I posted to their Discord channel. Not only did they come back to me in a very short turnaround, explaining exactly what I would have to do to make the changes, they even just passed along an updated material that implemented changes already. I mean, that's just utter class. So big thank you and shout out to them for making my journey super easy. If you're ever in the market for a circular progress bar, this asset is a must consider. So I ended up implementing my HUD, and this is what it kind of looks like. So the outer circle is health, the yellow circle being super meter, and the blue is defend. And if you have a character that has dashes available, the green splotches indicate how many dashes they have, and if you use one, it goes black and then slowly recharges again. So you can use all three, and then I can't do anything until they're back. So this character has 2 dashes. So it's pretty much what I wanted. If we look at a character like Hotaru, he's got all of it pretty much. So there's the dashes again, the block, it drains, and then while it's refilling you can't block again. I'll obviously tweak this a lot, how fast it drains and how fast it recovers. and in the super meter, once you use it, it's all used up, and then you can't use it again until it's full. So getting some back, let me just change this enemy. I think I gave him a lot of health while I was testing. Yeah. So I made it that when you kill an enemy, you gain super back, and also if you execute a perfect block, you also get some back. But you can't, or it's very difficult to chain super blocks because the block meter needs to refill in that moment. I think it's quite nicely balanced for now, but I'll still see how that goes on. One thing that does bother me about it is this distance between the HUD and the player. Because I want it to be quick to look at and find out your exact state, it does feel a bit far apart for me. So as an experiment, I wound up doing the following. I basically added the HUD on the character itself, and I'm still displaying it in screen space, which means it'll always be no, it won't work. So it follows the character around and it'll always be the same size. Doesn't matter how far they are from the screen, that's screen space. I considered putting it as world space, but that means there'll be a lot more work to make sure it's never behind anything and doesn't disappear. So I'll leave it like this for now. I kind of like it. You know, it follows the character around and it's very quick and easy to see your state just by glancing down. You can see your health, your super, your block and everything. So I'm pretty happy with this. I know some people might not like it, so I might even consider putting this as a setting, game setting, so you can choose if you want the full HUD or the character following HUD. But I'm pretty happy with how it's implemented for now. Then moving on to the stun lengths. I played a lot with different variations. However, the conclusion that I came to is it pretty much overcomplicates the gameplay too much. So instead of having different stun per combo attack value, I kept the stun value per character. So some characters have higher stuns than others, and which leads me into the next item, which was combo damage per character. Let me just remove the AI controller from this for a moment. And give him a lot more health. Right. So each character now has a varying amount of damage they do per attack, generally in an incremental fashion. In other words, attack 2 in the combo does more damage than first, and attack 3 does the most damage. And I also therefore tweaked the knockback amount per character, and this came full circle and in turn informed me what a good stun value would be per character. So I think currently I've got a good balance. Haruki is on the lower end of the spectrum, doesn't do a ton of damage. Guren, highest damage, as I want him to be the tanky kind of character, does a lot. So the values that I ended up with I feel pretty good. Sumire turned out to be the lowest, or the weakest character. Not a lot of damage, but it's very fast. And the thing is, her knockback is also the lowest, but a longer stun length, which suits her because it means the character doesn't get pushed back, or the enemy doesn't get pushed back too far from her, but they are stunned longer, and they end up being susceptible to follow-up combos very nicely. I think it also ended up with, surprisingly, Ryuji being the second strongest character. He doesn't have a lot of other things going for him. So yeah, that was pretty nice to play around with, and what I ended up with. The last thing I was going to consider is the multi-chaining. I implemented it in a rough manner, and it kind of worked for the most part, but the timing didn't work exactly as I wanted it. It didn't feel as crisp as the rest of the first set of combos. And currently I'm doing pretty much a hybrid of in C++ versus blueprints, which I find quite efficient. But for a lot of the larger pieces of work, I do implement it solely in blueprints for now, in favor of quick turnaround, and testing and functionality. So I do have a lot of code in blueprints. Now, as much as I like blueprints and I know how powerful and seductively easy it is to use, I do end up with messy implementations, because I'm not very disciplined when I use it. So I'm definitely going to move a lot of the stuff, like these bigger functions that I have, into C++. And once I do that, it's going to be a lot cleaner and leaner implementation, I feel. So once I've done with that, I can relook at something like this multi-chaining. So I'm abandoning the idea for now, as all of my tweaking to the characters has kind of make it a moot point to implement, really, since it's not necessary to multi-chain at this stage of the game. So maybe I'll revisit it in the future, but we'll see. One thing some eagle-eyed viewers might have noticed is Genjiro's HUD is showing super meter. Now, funny story, I had a call with a friend earlier in the week to just have a chat about the current state of the game development in general, and we were talking about attacking in mid-air. And I went through the sprite sheets that I have for the characters, and I noticed for Genjiro I had a super attack sprite sheet that I never utilized. I know, utterly shameful. So he has a super attack now, which I quickly implemented, which is quite a nice attack. There it is. It's kind of like an uppercut. I will make it so that the character or the enemies get pushed into the air as well as pushed back, and then also on landing there will be a little just force pushing enemies away. Also, that's very annoying, I did not put a way to reset the super easily. The attack box currently just follows that. Maybe I can just do it this way. Super. So as you can see, the hitbox basically just follows that upwards trajectory. In the future I would like to actually just make it follow the attack more, so upwards while the attack is happening. But once I do move the code to C++, that's going to be much easier for me to implement. So yeah, that's pretty cool for now. Let's put it back to idle. So yeah, even though it's been a challenging week, I do feel like I've achieved a good deal of progress. Now, what I'll be looking at next week, I've been thinking a lot about it, and I actually think I've messed around with the characters, character feel, and general game elements long enough, and it's in a solid place. I'm pretty happy with how everything feels for now. So I'll actually look at building out the arena that I have in mind for the game. Now, environment building is not my strong suit. However, I do have a very clear idea in my head of what I need from the environment. So I think I should be able to put it together pretty well. If there's time, I might consider extending this to include the character selection, as they kind of go hand in hand in my head. Now, it doesn't feel like I'm aiming high with the plans for the week, but once I start building out an environment, I do sometimes get pretty caught up in it and pretty finicky and really drawn into how I want things to be exactly so, and when I place it, and versus the idea I have in my head. So it'll probably, or most likely, take up the majority of the week in any case. So I'd rather put a goal out that I know I can achieve, rather than one I can only partially commit to achieving. And then I also think next week I'll probably do an overall stock take of where the game is at and what I have left to do, as I'm pretty much 9 weeks away from planned release date. So yeah, I think that'll be a good stake in the ground to see where I'm at, what's still left to do, and kind of inform my plans for each week from there on. So thanks again for taking the time to watch, and I look forward to seeing you next week.